Hey guys, my name is Dice Rollin. Today we're going to be taking a look at some facts you didn't know about the musical cult classic that gave us a taste of the sweet transvestite. The Rocky Horror Picture Show was directed by Jim Sharman and was based from the theater play of the same name created by Richard O'Brien. It tells the story of a clean-cut couple who go to an isolated castle after experiencing a flat tire. Nothing in their wildest imaginations could have prepared them for what awaited inside. So without further ado, these are some things you didn't know about the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I see you shiver with anticipation.
All of the movies referenced during the science fiction double feature number are Flash Gordon, Dr. X 1932, King Kong 1933, The Invisible Man 1933, When Worlds Collide 1951, The Day the Earth Stood Still 1951, It Came from Outer Space 1953, Tarantula 1955, Curse of the Demon 1957, and Invasion of the Triffids 1963. Originally, there were supposed to be clips from each of the movies mentioned in science fiction double feature between the credits. However, Brian Thompson didn't like this concept, so he suggested the use of the red lips mouthing the words of the song. This was inspired by the Man Ray painting, Observatory Time, The Lovers. During the earlier portions of the movie, the criminologist mentions that these events happened in late November. However, Richard Nixon's resignation speech is playing on the radio as Brad and Janet are driving in the car. Nixon resigned on August 8, 1974. O'Brien has stated that this is because Brad had likely recorded the speech and listens to it frequently, though he isn't thrilled with this being included in the movie as it sets it in a specific time. The castle used in the film, Oakley Court, had previously been used in a number of Hammer horror movies, such as The Man in Black 1950, The Brides of Dracula 1960, The Reptile 1966, and The House in Nightmare Park 1973. It was originally built in 1859 and was refurbished in 1981, turning it into a hotel. The skeleton featured in the grandfather clock during Time Warp was a real skeleton that belonged to a woman who commissioned the clock. The clock was sold in auction in 2002 for £35,000, which, converted to US dollars and with added inflation, would be approximately $70,000 now. According to Nell Campbell, one of the reasons why Time Warp was written into the play was so she could show off her tap dance skills. Patricia Quinn did not dye her hair. Instead, a spray-on red color was used every day of filming. The Transylvanian, who is an Asian woman with long hair, was actually Richard O'Brien's wife at the time, Kimmy Wong. Former David Bowie stylist Pierre Laroche is responsible for the makeup designs of the film, particularly Frank's. This was the film debut of Tim Curry. Though originally going for a German accent, Tim Curry came up with the voice of Frank-N-Furter by combining his mother's telephone voice and a sort of exaggerated version of Queen Elizabeth II. The pink triangle patch on Frank's gown is a reference to the upside-down one that Nazis would often force gay men to wear in concentration camps. This one, however, is pointed up, which signifies gay pride. According to Richard O'Brien, it was Riff Raff who is primarily responsible for Rocky, as he did almost all of the work. So, when he tells Frank that everything is in readiness, and they merely await his word, this is a subtle jab at Frank. There are a number of screen-used props and set pieces used here from Hammer horror movies. One such item is the tank and dummy in the scene for Rocky's birth. This was from The Revenge of Frankenstein 1958. Though it may not initially look this way, there was a very specific order that Curry had to turn the spigots during Rocky's birth scene. Off-screen, someone would shout each color to Curry, who at one point looked rather confused, as he was scrambling to get the right color. Trevor White lent his voice for Rocky's singing and dubbing of general vocalizations. This was because Peter Hinwood apparently couldn't sing well. During the scene after Rocky's birth, Magenta tells Frank that he is a triumph of his will. This is likely a joking reference to Triumph of Will 1935, which is a Nazi propaganda film. It's also probably due to the fact that Rocky very much resembles the Nazi ideal of the Superman. You may have noticed that Rocky doesn't have a belly button. That's because, as a creation, he didn't ever have an umbilical cord, so the makeup crew made a sort of plug for Peter Hinwood to wear. I Can Make You a Man is a reference to the Charles Atlas muscle ads of the 40s and 50s. Their slogan was usually, in just 7 days, I can make you a man. In a similar fashion, Don't Dream It, Be It was taken by O'Brien from an ad on the back of a magazine. During the scene in which Frank is using the whip against Riffraff, Curry is using a real whip. The key was to crack the whip on the floor in front of O'Brien. But there is one moment where it came too close and accidentally struck O'Brien. You can see him grimace a bit because of this. A detail you might have caught among the chemical symbols scrawled on the lab wall is a grocery list, consisting of eggs, flour, bread, sugar, and 2 hypodermics. The reason for Dr. Scott crashing through the wall during his entrance is because those responsible for building the set neglected to put a door into the lab. During the dinner scene, when Barry Bostwick slams his fist on the table, he accidentally hit Susan Sarandon's hand, so her reaction is quite real. In a sort of retaliation move during the floor show, Sarandon accidentally stepped on Bostwick's foot with her heel. His reaction is also real and noticeable. Supposedly, none of the actors, with the exception of Richard O'Brien, Tim Curry, and Meatloaf, were told about Eddie's corpse under the tablecloth during the dinner scene, so their reactions are genuine during the reveal of it. There are a lot of company symbols throughout the film. The lightning bolt flag represents RKO. The griffin holding a shield represents Warner Brothers. The eagle in the hall represents Republic. The big cat here represents MGM. Columbia represents the company of the same name. The illuminated Atlas painting represents Anglo Amalgamated Productions. Columbia wearing Mickey Mouse ears clearly represents Disney. The gong represents J. Arthur Rank Organization. The radio tower during the floor show is another nod to RKO, and the lit globe represents Universal Studios. Apparently, while writing the script for the play, Richard O'Brien saw himself playing Eddie, but the director who was hired actually felt he would make a better Riffraff. The original play of Rocky Horror Picture Show first premiered on June 19, 1973, at the Royal Court Theatre upstairs. The cast consisted of Richard O'Brien, Tim Curry, Christopher Malcolm, Julie Covington, Jonathan Adams, Nell Campbell, Patricia Quinn, Rainer Borton, and Patty O'Hagan. Steve Martin was one of the actors who auditioned for the role of Brad Majors. Cliff D. Young was offered the role of Brad, but he declined. Tuesday Weld also turned down the part of Janet. Jonathan Kramer was originally supposed to play Frank-N-Furter, and Mick Jagger had at one point wanted to play the part. Vincent Price was offered the role of the criminologist. Though he was interested, he had to decline due to scheduling conflicts. Elvis Presley was the first choice to play Eddie, and he even showed interest in doing so, but it didn't work out. Rocky Horror Picture Show would have had a much bigger budget if Jim Sharman had accepted 20th Century Fox's condition of casting popular musicians at the time. However, Sharman insisted on keeping the original cast from the play, so as a compromise he took a smaller budget and cast American actors in the roles of Brad and Janet. This way, Richard O'Brien, Tim Curry, Nell Campbell, and Patricia Quinn got to keep their roles. The movie was shot in Bray, England, which is near Windsor, and lasted from October to December. Patricia Quinn has said that she took the role of Magenta because she loved science fiction double feature. She was upset that during the filming of the movie she didn't get to sing it. However, those are Quinn's lips lip-syncing to Richard O'Brien singing the song. For those who may be wondering just what Frank's sexuality is, according to Curry, he's pansexual. Richard O'Brien was unsure if Meatloaf would be able to perform Hot Patootie Bless My Soul, as he had written it. At some point, O'Brien had handed Meatloaf the music and said, "It's okay to flub a few lines. No one in the London cast has ever sung the whole thing correctly anyway." Meatloaf took a look at it and replied, "What's the problem?" and proceeded to sing it in its entirety without skipping a beat. During the preparations for the motorcycle scene with Eddie, there were several accidents. According to Meatloaf, the stuntman driving the motorcycle fell off a high point on set and landed upside down with the bike pinning him underneath. Meatloaf himself ran to him and lifted the bike enough to get it off the stuntman. For some time, the stuntman didn't move until he opened his eyes and informed everyone that he was fine. This is an old stunt trick where the individual would do a sort of mental scan of their body before moving to make sure they weren't injured severely. In a different portion of this scene where close-ups of Meatloaf were being filmed, he was in a wheelchair rigged with handlebars and a windshield that was being pulled around in front of the camera. During shooting, the wheelchair hit a ridge at the bottom of the steps. This sent Meatloaf flying to the floor and shattered the windshield and camera. The same stuntman attempted to catch Meatloaf but caught his leg on the ramp, which caused a serious fracture, and Meatloaf, perhaps ironically, got a deep cut on his head. Despite having done so in previous films, when Susan Sarandon was asked to perform nude for Touch Me, she refused. In the stage version of Rocky Horror Picture Show, the same actor who played Eddie would also play Dr. Scott. During production of the movie, Meatloaf was upset to learn that this would not be the case. He has said, "I said you're making a huge mistake, and I still think they did, even though the actor was fine. The way it was in the play was that Eddie and Dr. Scott really looked alike, so you knew it was his nephew, and I was a really good Dr. Scott." Apparently, the castle used for filming wasn't in the best shape, as Barry Bostwick has said that he was constantly wet due to a leak. One room was used solely for space heaters where the cast would retreat to warm up. However, at one point the room caught fire. On a similar note, Susan Sarandon was told that she was complaining too much by studio executives when she mentioned the lack of heat in bathrooms. So, after the pool segment, she actually caught pneumonia, but continued to work. According to Richard O'Brien, she was shaking with fever and should have been under medical supervision. The movie was originally meant to be in black and white until Frank's entrance, where just his lips would be in color. By the end of Sweet Transvestite, everything would switch to color and stay that way until Superheroes. For the 25th anniversary, 20th Century Fox included a special cut on the DVD re-release, where everything was black and white until Riff Raff opened the door to the party, revealing the Transylvanians. From then on, everything was in color. However, several fans thought this was simply lazy. When the movie was released, it actually didn't do well at all. For this reason, it was moved to midnight screenings. Through word of mouth among the crowds attending late-night movies, it began to gain popularity. It actually holds the longest theatrical run in history. Princess Diana was a fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show. She actually requested to meet Tim Curry and told him with a smile that the movie quite completed her education. In the early 90s, Hinwood rediscovered his possession of Rocky's gold shorts and sold them at auction. It was Hard Rock Cafe that bought them and added them to their memorabilia collection. Apparently, both Susan Sarandon and Peter Hinwood dislike talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show at times. In Sarandon's case, it's due to the fact that none of the cast got any royalties from the DVD sales. For Hinwood, it's because he's a bit embarrassed about being in the movie, though despite what some have said, he has never thrown anyone out of his shop for mentioning it. So those were some facts about the Rocky Horror Picture Show you may not have known. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like to let me know. And don't forget to leave a comment down below telling me what other horror movies you'd like to see me dig up some facts about. Also, don't forget to share this video to help the channel grow, and subscribe for more videos like this. See you later.